In the quiet corners of everyday life, family is often more than just the people we're born into. It's the ones we choose, the ones who fight for us, and the ones who challenge everything we thought we knew. Jane's world is shaken to its core when she learns that the family she thought she had might not be the one she was born into. As secrets unfold and bonds are tested, she must navigate love, betrayal, and the truth about who she really is. Get ready to follow her journey in My Sister, My Family, where nothing is ever as it seems. Seattle was a city that whispered secrets in the rain, a place where the clouds stretched endlessly above the skyline. Jane had always loved this city, the mist that blanketed the mornings, the way the air smelled of pine and earth, the energy that buzzed through the streets even when everything seemed still. It had been the perfect place for her and Caleb to start a life together. They had met years ago in a cafe, just two strangers who connected over spilled coffee and shared laughter. Caleb had this way about him, a nervous energy that never quite settled. His fingers always drummed against the table, his thoughts racing faster than his words could catch up. Jane was different, quiet, thoughtful, careful. Where Caleb was chaotic, she was calm. They balanced each other. That's how they ended up here in this little house with the white picket fence, after years of struggling to build something they could call their own. But the journey wasn't as smooth as it seemed on the outside. After their wedding, there were years of disappointment and heartache. They tried for a baby, one, then two, then three times, but each attempt ended in loss. The miscarriages were crushing, both physically and emotionally. And with every failure, the questions and the doubts grew louder. Could they ever have the family they dreamed of? Then when they were just about to give up, Jane found out she was pregnant again. This time, the doctors said it might be possible, but they wouldn't get their hopes up. And Jane didn't want to either. After everything they'd been through, she couldn't let herself believe that this time would be different. But as the months went on, the signs were there. This was finally it. She could feel the life growing inside her, could hear the rhythmic beating of her baby's heart. Maybe, just maybe, they were going to be parents. When Luna was born, she was perfect. A little bundle of warmth and softness, with dark hair and eyes that sparkled even as a newborn. Jane held her close in the hospital room, her heart swelling with love and relief. Caleb, who had been so nervous throughout the whole process, was now a different person. He looked at Luna, his face lighting up with something so deep, so raw, that Jane knew it was love in its purest form. But not everyone shared their joy. Vivian, Caleb's mother, walked into the room like a storm. Jane had been expecting the usual coldness, the silent disapproval, but what came next was more than she could handle. Vivian looked at Luna, and her face tightened with something akin to disdain. She crossed her arms and, without hesitation, muttered, "This child can't be our blood." The words hung in the air like a bomb dropped in a quiet room, shattering the peaceful bubble Jane had been in for the last few hours. Caleb froze. His eyes flickered between his mother and his wife, the tension thick in the room. Jane's breath caught in her throat as the anger, the hurt, the confusion rushed over her like a tidal wave. "What are you saying?" Caleb's voice was barely above a whisper, but there was a tremor in it. He couldn't believe his mother was saying these things, not now. Not when they had just become parents to a perfect child. Vivian didn't soften. "Look at her, Caleb. She doesn't look anything like you, not a thing. She's not one of us." The words stung, each one more painful than the last. Jane felt a lump form in her throat, but she held it together, forcing a smile. She wouldn't let Vivian's words ruin this moment. She had fought too hard for this family, for this little girl who was everything to her. But inside, Jane's world was crumbling. How could Vivian be so cold? How could she question something so fundamental, something so pure? Anna, Jane's older sister, who was a doctor, stepped into the room just as the tension was reaching its breaking point. She could see the storm clouds gathering between her sister and mother-in-law. Anna placed a hand on Jane's shoulder, offering a silent comfort, then turned to Caleb. "Maybe it's time we step outside for a moment," she suggested softly. Caleb didn't move. He stared at his mother, his jaw tight, but he couldn't bring himself to argue with her in front of Jane and Luna. Not yet. Not when the hurt was so raw. Jane stood there, holding Luna, her heart aching as the weight of Vivian's words sank in. The room felt cold, even though the hospital was warm, even though Luna was pressed against her chest, safe and sound. As Anna guided Caleb out of the room, Jane was left with her thoughts and the constant ache in her chest. What was she supposed to do? She had hoped so desperately that their family could finally be whole, that they could escape the doubts and the judgments from the outside world. But now, with Vivian's sharp words still echoing in her mind, Jane wondered if they would ever truly be accepted as a family. But she wasn't going to back down. Not for Caleb, not for Luna, and definitely not for Vivian. Family, she realized, wasn't about blood. It was about love. And she was going to fight for the family she had fought so long to build. The next few days in the hospital were a blur for Jane. There were visits, cards, and flowers from friends, but all of that felt distant. The joy of Luna's birth had been tainted by Vivian's harsh words, and Jane couldn't shake the heaviness in her chest. She wanted so badly to believe that this was just another misunderstanding, that her mother-in-law didn't really mean what she had said. But deep down, she knew the truth, that there was something darker simmering beneath the surface of the family's complicated dynamic. Caleb hadn't spoken much since the confrontation. He would sit by Jane's side, looking at Luna with such devotion, but his thoughts seemed miles away. It was like a part of him had been taken from him in that moment. His connection to his mother, his understanding of where he belonged. Jane watched him closely, wondering if he was questioning his place in this new family they were building. Anna, on the other hand, had been a pillar of support. As a doctor, she was used to seeing people at their most vulnerable, and she had an unshakable calm about her that always grounded Jane. She stayed with her through the late nights, making sure Jane got rest, even as she quietly observed the cracks forming between Caleb and his mother. Anna knew better than anyone how much Jane had longed for this moment, how hard she had fought to become a mother. And she knew that Jane would not let anything, especially not Vivian's bitterness, take that from her. "Hey, you're doing great," Anna said one evening, when the hospital lights flickered low and the night was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Jane was sitting by Luna's crib, watching her daughter sleep peacefully. It was in these moments that Jane felt a sense of peace, a fleeting reminder that despite everything, her family was here. "I'm trying," Jane said, her voice barely a whisper, the weight of the world pressing down on her chest. "But I don't know if Caleb is going to make it through this. He's so torn between us, between me and his mother." Anna sat beside her, wrapping an arm around her sister. "That's the thing, Jane. You have to remember that you and Caleb have built a life together. You're a family. And this? It's just a bump in the road. It's a tough one, but it's just a bump." Jane looked at her sister, seeing the determination in her eyes. "But what if it's more than that? What if I'm not enough? What if Caleb can't see me as his family anymore?" Anna sighed, her voice gentle but firm. "You're his family, Jane. And you know who else is? Luna. You've given him a daughter, a piece of his heart, and he can't walk away from that." The words sank into Jane like a salve on a wound. She didn't want to admit it, but Anna was right. Caleb might be struggling, but he wasn't the kind of man to turn his back on the woman he loved or the child they had created together. And yet, it didn't erase the fear that gnawed at Jane, the fear that Vivian's shadow would forever haunt their family. It was just a few hours later when Caleb came back to the hospital room, his face drawn and tired. He looked at Jane and then at Luna, his expression softening, though his eyes still carried the weight of what had happened. "Jane," he said, his voice rough, "I talked to my mom." Jane's heart skipped a beat, but she said nothing, just waited for him to continue. She didn't apologize," Caleb went on, "but she said she didn't mean what she said. I think she's just scared. And maybe I've been too hard on her." Jane swallowed her emotions, not knowing how to respond. She wanted to be angry, but more than anything, she just wanted Caleb to find peace. "Caleb, this isn't just about what your mom said, it's about our family. You and me. And Luna. I need you to be here with me, truly here, Jane said, her voice catching. I need to know that you're not just stuck between us, because I'm not going anywhere. Caleb took a deep breath and sat down beside her. I know. I'm sorry I've been so distant. I just didn't know how to process it all. I thought I had everything figured out. I thought I knew where I belonged, but now it's all so uncertain. Jane placed her hand over his, her grip firm and reassuring. We don't need to have it all figured out, Caleb. We don't need to know where we belong because we already have each other. And we have Luna. We've built something so strong here and nothing can tear that apart. Caleb nodded slowly, the tension in his shoulders easing as he took in her words. You're right. We have each other. And we have Luna. Just then, Luna stirred in her crib, her small hands reaching out as if to touch the world around her. Jane leaned over and scooped her up, cradling the baby close. And we have this little miracle, Jane whispered, her eyes softening as she gazed at the precious life they had created. For the first time in days, Caleb smiled, a quiet, genuine smile that spoke of hope, of a future they would build together despite the uncertainties. I'm sorry, Jane, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I promise I'll be here. For you, for Luna, for our family. And with that, Jane felt a flicker of peace settle within her. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Their family, her family, was enough. And as long as they had each other, they could face anything that came their way. The days following Caleb's conversation with his mother were not easy, but they were a step toward healing. The tension between him and Jane started to ease, though the quiet unease still hung in the air. Jane knew deep down that Caleb's heart was torn. He loved her, and he loved Luna. But the weight of his mother's words had left a scar on him, a wound that wouldn't heal easily. One afternoon, after Luna had fallen asleep in her crib, Jane found Caleb sitting by the window staring out at the Seattle skyline. He hadn't said much all morning, and Jane knew he was lost in his thoughts again. His brow furrowed, as if he were trying to piece together something that had been shattered. Caleb, she said softly, approaching him. Are you okay? He turned to her, his face drawn with the exhaustion of both body and mind. I don't know, Jane. I keep thinking about what my mom said. I know I shouldn't, but it's hard not to. I don't know where I stand anymore, with her, with you, with us. Jane sat down beside him, placing her hand gently on his. You stand with us, Caleb. You always have and you always will. Our family isn't about blood. It's about love. It's about what we choose to build together. I know, he said, his voice heavy with regret. But sometimes I feel like everything is just slipping through my fingers. Like I'm caught between two worlds. Jane understood his struggle, the feeling of being torn in two, caught between the loyalty to the woman who had raised him and the woman he had chosen to spend his life with. She had been there before, too, when she had to choose between fitting into the family she married into and protecting the family she was building with Caleb. Caleb, I'm not asking you to choose between me and her, Jane said quietly, her eyes meeting his. But I need you to be present for our family. Luna needs you. I need you. I can't do this alone. He nodded slowly, his eyes softening. I know, Jane. I'm sorry for not being the husband and father you need. I've been trying to keep peace, trying to make everyone happy, but I forgot about us. I forgot about what we've built. Jane placed her hand on his cheek, her fingers brushing the stubble there. We'll get through this, together. The next morning, as the soft light of dawn filled their living room, Jane received a call from her sister, Anna. Jane picked up the phone, and Anna's voice immediately brought her a sense of calm, as it always did. Hey, how's everything going? Anna asked, her tone warm, full of the caring that only a sister could provide. We're getting there, Jane replied, her voice tired but hopeful. Caleb and I are talking more. It's just been a lot to handle, you know? I can only imagine, Anna said. But you've got this. You've always been strong, Jane. You're not alone in this. Jane sighed, her heart heavy. I don't feel strong right now, Anna. I feel like everything's falling apart, and I can't hold it together. What if what if this just doesn't work out? There was a brief silence on the other end of the line before Anna spoke again, her voice gentle but firm. Jane, don't ever doubt the strength of what you've built with Caleb. And don't ever doubt the family you've created with Luna. It's your family, not anyone else's, not mine, not Mom's, not Caleb's. Yours? Her words struck deep in Jane's heart. It wasn't just about the struggle with Caleb's mother or the complications of family dynamics. It was about the strength that came from the bond they had, from the love that was theirs alone to protect. As Jane hung up the phone, she felt a renewed sense of resolve. Anna had reminded her of something she had almost forgotten, the power of her own choices, of the family she had built with Caleb. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't what she had imagined growing up, with the perfect in-laws and the idyllic family gatherings. But it was real. It was theirs. And that was enough. Later that day, Caleb took Jane's hand and led her into the living room, where Luna was playing with a toy on the floor. He crouched down beside her, his face soft with love. Jane watched him, her heart swelling with pride. He was here, he was present, and that was all that mattered. I'm sorry, Jane, Caleb said, his voice steady now. I've been fighting this battle inside of me for too long, but you and Luna are my family. You're the ones I need to fight for. I'll never let go of that. Jane smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek as she watched him interact with Luna. We've got this, Caleb. We're stronger than anything that comes our way. As the evening settled in, the three of them sat together. A family, simple, imperfect, but filled with love. For the first time in a long while, Jane felt at peace. It wasn't about the approval of others or the expectations of family. It was about the bond she shared with Caleb and Luna, the family they had created, and the life they were building together. And as they sat there watching Luna play, Jane whispered to herself, "This is my family. This is all I need." As the days turned into weeks, Jane and Caleb began to find their footing again, navigating the complexities of parenthood and marriage. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Caleb had slowly come to terms with his complicated relationship with his mother. He knew that Vivian's disapproval wasn't something he could change overnight, but he also knew he couldn't let it tear his family apart. Jane could see the weight lifting from his shoulders, little by little, though it was clear that the healing process would take time. Despite this, Jane's heart still ached. The tension with Vivian was far from over, and every time Caleb's mother called or sent a message, Jane felt a tight knot in her chest. She wanted to be accepted, not just for the sake of Caleb, but for Luna as well. She wanted to believe that despite everything, family could mean more than just blood. One evening, as Jane sat on the couch holding Luna, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Anna. "We need to talk. Can you meet me tomorrow? I've been thinking about everything." A wave of anxiety swept over Jane. What was Anna thinking? Was she worried about Caleb? About their family? She hadn't had a chance to really talk to her sister about everything that had happened. And now Anna wanted to meet. The uncertainty gnawed at her, but she decided to push those feelings aside. Anna had always been there for her, and she wasn't about to pull away now. The next morning, Jane found herself sitting across from Anna at their favorite cafe. The smell of coffee and fresh pastries filled the air as they settled into a booth by the window. Luna was happily nestled in her stroller, her wide eyes scanning the world around her. "Jane," Anna began softly, her eyes kind but serious. "I've been thinking about everything that's been happening with Caleb and his mom. I know you're trying to make it work, but you need to take care of yourself too." Jane frowned, a lump forming in her throat. "What do you mean?" "I'm fine, Anna. I just want things to settle down." Anna leaned in, her voice calm yet insistent. "I know you want things to be okay, but I can see you're carrying a lot on your own. I'm your sister. I know you better than anyone. You've been putting everyone else's feelings first, but what about you? What do you need?" Jane's eyes welled up with emotion. She had always been the caretaker, the one who held everything together. She had spent so much time trying to fix things for Caleb, for Luna, for their family. But what about her? What about the woman who had struggled for years to have a child, who had finally gotten her miracle, only to be met with rejection and doubt from the one person she thought would support her? "I just want peace," Jane whispered, her voice cracking. "I want Caleb to be happy. I want Luna to grow up surrounded by love. But it's hard, Anna. It's hard when I feel like I'm the only one fighting for us." Anna reached across the table and took Jane's hand, squeezing it gently. "You're not alone, Jane. You have me. And Caleb? He's trying, I can see that, but he's been torn between his loyalty to his mom and his love for you. You've been patient with him, and now it's time for him to be patient with you." Jane looked down at the table, her heart aching. She had always known that her family was different. Her own parents had divorced when she was young, and she had been determined to build something better. But sometimes, no matter how hard you tried, things didn't go as planned. And this? This was harder than anything she had ever imagined. "I don't know if I can keep doing this," Jane admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know if I can keep fighting. What if Caleb can't choose me over his mom? What if I'm not enough for him? What if Luna isn't enough for him?" Anna shook her head firmly. "Don't ever think that. You are enough, Jane. And so is Luna. The love you two share, it's real, and that's what matters. Caleb needs to understand that, and you need to give yourself the same grace you've been giving him. You deserve to be loved, to be cared for, and to be supported. Not just by him, but by your family too. You're not alone. We're here for you." Tears welled up in Jane's eyes as she felt the weight of Anna's words. It was so easy to get lost in the chaos, to forget that she wasn't the only one carrying the burden. Her sister had always been there, steady and strong, and it was time for Jane to lean on that strength. "I've been so scared," Jane confessed. "Scared that everything will fall apart, that I'll lose Caleb, that I'll lose Luna, that I'll lose this family that I fought so hard to build. But I need to believe that we can make it through this. I need to trust that our love is enough." Anna smiled warmly, her hand still holding Jane's. "It is, Jane. It always has been. You and Caleb and Luna. This is your family. And nothing, not even Vivian's doubts, can take that away from you. You've created something beautiful, and you deserve to hold on to it with everything you've got." Later that evening, after their conversation, Jane felt a shift inside her, a sense of clarity. Her sister had reminded her of something crucial, that her family, her real family, was built on love, not approval, not blood. And no matter what happened with Caleb's mom, she was going to fight for that love. As she walked through the door of their home later that night, Luna in her arms and Caleb waiting with open arms, Jane finally felt the peace she had been searching for. She wasn't alone. Not anymore. Days drifted by, and the tension in the house slowly started to dissolve, though it hadn't disappeared entirely. Caleb, once so hesitant, had begun to let go of his doubts. Jane saw it in the way he looked at Luna now, with a tenderness that melted her heart, and in the way he reached for her hand in the evenings, as if to reaffirm that they were still a team. But every now and then, the shadow of his mother's words would hang over them, quiet but persistent, like a distant storm cloud. Jane, too, had made peace with the fact that things might never be perfect. Her relationship with Vivian had shifted beyond repair, and the weight of her mother-in-law's judgment was something Jane had to accept. But that didn't mean she had to let it define her or her family. She had built something beautiful, something strong, with Caleb and Luna, and that was enough. It was early one morning, just before the sun began to rise, that Jane found herself staring out the window, her fingers absent-mindedly tracing the edge of her coffee mug. The house was still and quiet, save for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. Luna was still asleep in her crib, wrapped in a cozy pink blanket. Caleb was still in bed, but Jane couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing, something she hadn't thought of until now. Her thoughts were interrupted by a text message from Anna. "Can you come over? I need to talk to you about something important. It's about the family." Jane's heart skipped a beat. Anna's messages were usually casual, but there was an urgency in her words now, a weight that Jane couldn't ignore. She quickly put down her coffee and grabbed her phone, typing a quick reply. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. When Jane arrived at Anna's house, she found her sister waiting for her by the door. Anna's face was drawn, her eyes tired, as though she had been carrying something heavy for a while. Jane stepped inside, her concern growing. "What's going on?" Jane asked, her voice gentle but laced with curiosity. "Is everything okay?" Anna led her into the living room, and Jane immediately noticed the stack of papers on the coffee table. Her sister sat down, patting the seat beside her, and Jane took a seat, her mind racing. "Jane, I've been doing a lot of thinking," Anna began, her voice serious. "I've been talking to Caleb too, and I've realized that there's something we need to address. Not just for you and Caleb, but for Luna too." Jane frowned, her worry deepening. "What is it? What's going on?" Anna took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "I know how much you've been trying to hold everything together. You've been strong, but I think you need to know something about your family. About your history." Jane blinked, confused. "My history? What do you mean?" Anna looked at her with a mixture of hesitation and resolve. "It's about your biological parents. Jane, I found something out. Something that's been hidden for a long time. You might not be who you think you are." The words hit Jane like a brick. Her heart raced, and for a moment she couldn't catch her breath. "What are you talking about?" she whispered. Anna placed the papers on the table in front of Jane. "These are some documents I've been going through, DNA tests, family records. It turns out that you were adopted." Jane's mind swirled with disbelief. "What? Number that can't be true? I've known my whole life who my parents are." Anna nodded, her face full of empathy. "I know this is a shock. I didn't want to tell you like this, but I think you need to know. The truth is, the family you thought you had, it's not the family you were born into. And Caleb, he's not your only family, Jane." The room felt like it was closing in on her. She sat there, frozen, unable to process the weight of Anna's words. All her life she had lived with the certainty of who she was, who she belonged to. And now, that foundation was crumbling beneath her. Tears welled in her eyes as she reached for the papers, her hands trembling. The documents were foreign, filled with names and dates she didn't recognize, but they were undeniable. The truth was staring her in the face. "I've spent my whole life trying to create the perfect family," Jane said, her voice barely audible. "But now it feels like everything I've known is a lie." Anna moved closer, wrapping her arm around Jane's shoulders. "I know this is hard. It's not easy to find out something like this, but you have a family, Jane. You've always had one. The people who love you, the people who care for you, that's your family. And Caleb, Luna, me, this is your family now." Jane wiped her eyes, her heart heavy with a mixture of grief and relief. "But what if I can't handle this? What if I'm not strong enough to deal with all these changes?" Anna squeezed her tighter. "You don't have to handle this alone. You've never been alone. You've always had me, and you always will." A silence settled between them as Jane let the weight of the revelation sink in. It was overwhelming, yes, but it was also freeing. She didn't need to be defined by a past that was out of her control. She had created her own family now, one built on love, not blood. And that was enough. As Jane left Anna's house later that afternoon, she walked to her car with a sense of calm. The truth had changed everything, but it had also given her something new to fight for. Her family, her real family, was waiting for her. And nothing, not even the past, could take that away. In My Sister, My Family, Jane's journey proves that family isn't just about blood, but about the love and choices that bind us together. As secrets unfold and hearts heal, Jane learns that the truth may be painful, but it's also the key to finding peace and belonging. What moment from this story resonated most with you? Was it the unexpected revelations or the strength of family? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more heartfelt stories. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next chapter.